Imagine yourself as a homesteader in early Yorkton. You're standing on your simple house's porch, looking out onto your land. You see a series of wetlands, woodlands, meadows, and even a small lake stretching towards the horizon. You love the potential of this land is offering and are excited to see what will happen for your new home. For one family, this is what they would have been thinking and seeing from their front porch. The interesting thing is, their view would also include a cityscape. I'm Hayden DeGrow, and I'm the Culture and Heritage Specialist for the City of Yorkton. I love learning history, and teaching people about Yorkton's past is a proud part of my job. Join me as I highlight fascinating people, places, and events from Yorkton's history and take you where these places can be found today. This is Yorkton Retold. In 1908, a young man by the name of George A. Dolmage arrived in the small but growing town of Yorkton. At just 24 years of age, Dolmage had already dipped his toes in many different parts of the agricultural industry. From being a hand on a grain farm to working as a cattle buyer and seller to being an auctioneer, Dolmage was already a jack of all trades in farming. When he arrived in Yorkton, he kept up his cattle buying practice and auctioneering. Adding to this resume, Dolmage worked as a farmhand during the peak times in the spring and fall and volunteered for the Yorkton Fire Department. During his time with the fire department, Dolmage built his first farm, just not at the idyllic site we just saw. It is not very well known where this farm was, but it is probable that this is what have been seen from the front door. The second reason he built this house was because he now had a family. Shortly after the romantic day of Valentine's Day in 1916, George Dolmage married a local lady named Harriet McPhee. After having two kids, James and Ruth, the Dolmage family sold their old farm and moved to Melford in 1924. In 1929, the family chose to move back to Yorkton as the newly declared city began to show promise. Here, they bought a large tract of land on the western outskirts of the city. This included two entire quarter sections where they raised chickens, dairy cattle, and hogs. To house these animals, the farm contained a livestock barn for the hogs and the cattle, two chicken coops, a farm shop, and a simple abode for their farmhands. On the northern part of the land were grain fields that allowed Dolmage to sell to local elevators and to feed his livestock. To house his family, Dolmage built a flat-fronted log house that faced out towards the marshlands. The house was about 12 feet long and 11.5 feet wide, with one floor and an attic raising the house to a height of just over 15 feet. It was a simple, quaint, and pleasant place for the family. Eventually, the family also expanded the house into a massive home still on their property. But farming wasn't the only thing that Dolmage did. Not only did he serve as a counselor for the RMF Orkney for 4 years, but he also served as the Reeve for 1. Dolmage, while too elderly to serve in the Canadian military during the Second World War, still offered his own services. Known as the Bacon for Britain program, Dolmage took in scrap foods from Yorkton's Commonwealth Air Training Base north of town to supplement the grain he fed his hogs. He then sold the pork to markets that sent it to the European theater. This weird sense of a recycling program earned Dolmage plenty of respect around Yorkton. But that is not all. After retiring from farming in the 1950s, Dolmage worked with his friend and business partner Norman Roebuck to invent and patent farm equipment. Working at a business named by Dolmage as Dalton Manufacturing, the former farmer operated his business on First Avenue North, right beside where this Filipino store is today. Here, he manufactured ladders, poles, and scoops to help farmers. Within those walls, Dolmage created a new type of grain blower as well, which blew grain into boxcars on trains to transport it to market. As well, Dolmage developed a bale lifter and a new type of metal for ladders. This metal, which he deemed aeroplane steel, was a lighter type of steel that made the ladders easier to move. In 1963, Dolmage finally retired, moving to Kelowna, BC with his wife. George Dolmage would pass away there in 1966 at the age of 81. In honor of his accomplishments, he was interred in the Royal Oak Cemetery in Victoria, BC, which is usually reserved for the top dignitaries and notable figures in BC. Back here in Yorkton, Norman Roebuck wanted to keep up with the business Dulmich had left behind and bought his farmstead. Sadly, this didn't last much longer either, as Roebuck passed away in 1967. The city bought up most of the land, demolished the farm's buildings, and turned the farmstead into the city's landfill. Now, in most cases, this would have been the end of the story for the farmstead. However, when the city proposed moving its landfill, they chose to turn the former lands of Dulmich into an ecological preserve, known simply as the Ravine. While they were preparing the land to do this, city workers and local historians discovered that the foundations of the buildings had been saved. Here, in these photos, we can see the various foundations around the area. In 1982, the city of Yorkton decided to highlight the farmstead in the preserve and added in signs across the lands to show where the buildings had once been. This made the farmstead highly unique in Yorkton, and even Canada, where a farmstead is open and visible to the public within a city's limits. Today, the Dulmich farmstead remains a literal hidden gem in Yorkton, becoming a popular spot for families to visit in the summertime. With agriculture playing such a vital role in Yorkton's history, it should come as no surprise that the city has sponsored a farmstead's preservation. What makes this one special is the fact that one can see Yorkton from where the front door would be. The Dulmich farmstead is truly a one-of-a-kind vision for both George Dulmich and for the city of Yorkton. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. See you next time, History Buffs.